Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job.
Hello and welcome to Homeschool Together. Thank you for joining us. If you have a chance, head down into the show notes and support the podcast if you can, or go over to YouTube and hit subscribe, and more importantly, leave a comment. Tell us what you think, only if it's nice and glowing and lovely. Totally true. Totally true. Make sure you hit the like button because we see all the likes too. Thanks so much for doing that, and everybody who has been supporting the podcast. We see you and we love it, and thank you very much.
Yep. And, you know, if you haven't, we always give this plug, like, please give an Apple iTunes review. We really love those. If you've been listening to our podcast for a while, just take 5 minutes and go do that. We read them all, and it really helps new families as they're like, are these two jokers worth listening to? So yeah.
It's sort of like an Amazon review. You know, it has a lot of reviews, but what are the reviews more recently? Have they,
Right. What have they done for you lately? So anyway, yeah, please leave a review if you can. We very much appreciate that.
So today we're going to be doing an episode that kind of came from a listener interview, talking about the idea of a low or no homeschooling type of day. And if you follow us on YouTube, another shameless plug for our YouTube, and our vlog, you'll see that we're doing a lot of stuff and we're reviewing a lot of content, and we talk about a lot of things that we do. We want to kind of clear the air and say we don't homeschool, 36 hours a day for 10 days a week, all the time. And so, like,
in that alternate universe,
and
where there's 10 days a week.
If only I had the time portal from Dragon Ball Z, I could educate a little bit more. Errol's already shaking her head. The hyperbolic time. What was it? The hyperbolic time room. I believe that's what it was. Oh yes, very, very, very silly. Those are the old days. But it does seem like we homeschool a lot, but that's not the truth. Like, we have a kind of a varying schedule, and we can be all over the place a lot of times due to life and sports and whatnot. And we want to just talk a little bit today about the idea of no homeschooling days or low homeschooling days as being kind of structurally put into our day-to-day. Yeah,
and there's so sometimes it's an oops thing where it's accidental and we just didn't get to homeschool today. There's days when it's a plan, as you kind of talked about. There's days when we're sick and things happen. But I think what was kind of interesting, because this person we interviewed was like, wow, it just seems like you guys do so much stuff. And we're like, no, really, it's not like what you think. They're like, how do you have time for all this? Like, no, it's not this way. So we wanted to do this. And as I was starting to do some research in it, I also found a lot of folks talking about the benefits of these days. And I really hadn't thought about the benefits of those kind of break days. So today we wanted to talk about, the reality of what our homeschool looks like and what for a lot of people, and why break days happen and how you can plan for them, but also like why they can be a good thing and important to have in your homeschool schedule.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the common misconception when we start to think about kind of these off days or low homeschool days, is that not every day has to be 100% productive. And productive
that would be
meaning
impossible.
It would be impossible. And there's also wear and tear. Like, think about it from the standpoint of you working or your day job, or if you were to be educating, like going to a class and stuff, and putting in multiple hours a day every single day, it can kind of wear on you. I mean, people who are athletes or who work out a lot, they have rest days, they have days off. It's not always all the way to the an 11 every single day, and kind of structuring in these off days or low input days is another way of recovering from, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, well, and you think about it, if our kids were in school, there would be days when they're at their best and days when they're frankly not. And same thing goes when I go to work. I mean, there's days when I feel like I'm firing on all cylinders, and then there's other days where I'm kind of just like, what time is it? What time is it? What time is it? Right? I mean, everyone has those days. I think one of the big advantages that we have with homeschool is that unlike sending our kids to a classroom where they could be having a really off day for a multitude of reasons, and that classroom is going to go on without them. So, I mean, they're going to either have to jog to keep up, or they're going to get left behind. They're maybe not going to remember what they learned that day. So we have the flexibility of saying, like, hey, it's not working for us today. Vice versa, that teacher who might be feeling a little sick, or who, is up all night with a child who's not feeling well or something. They get in, they're not having their best teaching day, but they got 30 students waiting on them, and they've got to keep going. So I love that this type of lifestyle can actually accommodate both people in this partnership to say, if we're not both in it today for whatever reason, then it's okay.
Yeah. And just talking a little bit about ourselves hey, it's our podcast. We talk about ourselves.
That's right.
The reality of our own schedule. And, some people who may listen to the podcast may think, oh, you guys homeschool 5 days a week. And that's not true.
No,
it's absolutely not true. Especially now that we're getting geared back up to, we're on the horizon is coming, the tide. I keep telling Ariel, the tide is coming in. I keep warning you, the water's coming. I can see it. And it's starting to boil up, and we're starting to get a lot of things, happening that are we're getting out of the summer. We're starting to think about when we get back to our parent partnership. Some of you guys may be going back to your co-ops or your meetup groups or your kind of communal schools or whatever you end up doing. The fall is coming for us.
Right. All the activities are restarting, even if it's not
Sports,
educational. You dance classes and everything.
Oh gosh, the tide is coming. And the reality for us when we're in the quote unquote school year, even though, we do homeschool all year round, but in the quote unquote homeschool year, which starts mid-September for us, during those weeks, we are not homeschooling every single day. And we struggle to homeschool more than, I would say, 3.5 days a week is the typical. And we do make up some ground on the weekends. Minor activities tend to be more outings, more, food related things, more
kind of fun.
Film related projects, video related projects, things of that nature. We are doing those on the weekends that maybe we can't have during the week, and then we can shift those off. So we do distribute through the week, but for the most part, we're doing, even here in the summer where I have less, supposedly I have less things going on here in the summer, we're only doing about 3-4 days a week for the most part. And when I say that, that means math and reading mainly. We are doing 3 to 4 days a week. And then every single day typically has some activities of reading, especially with my oldest. And we're reading to our kids, and we read books and stories at bedtime and doing those type of things. But from the standpoint of doing lessons, like all about reading lessons, Right Start math lessons, especially with both girls now, I'm only doing that about 3.5 days a week. So that's kind of the reality of us. Now, with respect to our Trekking the Globe, make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube and you'll start getting those videos. We're doing those, the same, about 3 days a week, maybe 3.5 days a week.
With some fun stuff on the weekends
Exactly.
when I'm home.
And I think that kind of makes up for the missed time, because I think for math and reading, our girls are really good with about 3 to 4, sets of lessons a week. And that's kind of their limit. And then the around the world journey stuff, the ancient civilizations, the prehistory stuff that if you've been following us for a long time that we've gone through, again, that is about 3 to 4 days a week and kind of spread out through that week, through across a little bit into the weekend. So that's kind of how we do that. And so we just wanted to be a little bit transparent on like what our days are. So, we tend to have one day where we don't do much homeschool, and maybe
at least one.
During the school year, it's typically, this coming year is going to be Wednesdays are going to be zero homeschooling. The kids have classes all day long. I'm just not going to do anything. If anything, we'll maybe do some YouTube videos and kind of
Maybe, but they're
additional
probably
things.
just going to need to play in the afternoon.
Exactly.
Yeah, we talked
Fridays
about-
are every other Friday. I'll be able to do some stuff, but sometimes they won't because they'll be in Girl Scouts.
Yeah, we've talked about our schedule coming up this fall.
And I'll go ahead and link that episode where we talked a little bit about it before, about what our coming year was going to look like.
Right. I think we're really going to be like able to do have a fully open day on Mondays to homeschool in the, we'll do mostly in the morning because that's usually when our kids are best. Tuesday, we'll be able to homeschool our older daughter while our younger's in classes. Wednesday, no homeschool.
Yep.
Thursday afternoon, maybe a little
Afternoonish,
bit if they're not too spent.
Mm-hmm.
And then Friday morning for about an hour every other Friday. And then they have classes. So it's going to be, it's going to be tighter. We have talked about, making up and doing a reading and math lesson, trying to get one done on a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
One of the weekend days, if we can squeeze it in, we'll try to, but yeah, that's the reality
Mm-hmm.
of our schedule. And the fun stuff, the trekking the world stuff, some of that happens when I'm home.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever do reading and math lessons with the kids. I'll sometimes listen to them read, but I don't actually do that with them. But I will read books to them from our, trekking study, whatever country we're in. And we will watch movies, and I'm the one that loves to cook. So the girls and I will cook together when we have like an activity for that. But when it comes to the art, I'm not really a big art person. So when it comes to the art and all the reading and math lessons, that's all you. And that's kind of what our schedule looks like. So I'm sure it feels like we do it every day, but we sure don't. And we've talked before about how we homeschool on the weekends as well. And I think some people think like we're just going straight through. It's like, well, no, we're really using those weekends because we couldn't do it during the regular work or school week for various reasons.
Yeah, using those lunchtime, early afternoon time periods are you're right, a little hit and miss throughout the week. I do try to lean on that maybe once or twice, but other than that, that's pretty much going to be our schedule going forward. So there's a good reason why I am starting to do lessons this summer with both girls, was really just trying to get into the groove of educating two children without any of the responsibilities, the ancillary responsibilities of classes and sports for the most part. Really having those open days, those that kind of that window, that the golden hours for my kids are between that 8:30 to about 11 o'clock window. Anything past that gets a little sketchy with behavior and attitudes and stamina. But those are really the golden hours for my kids for the core subjects. Doing dance or violin practice or sports practice can happen any time of the day. That's not a problem. But really those core subjects, the reading and math subjects, need to be done earlier in the day. That's really their best time. And because of that, if you feel that's something for, you as listeners to consider, especially you guys who are maybe starting off for the first time or trying to move around your schedule. If your golden hours are in the morning and you have activities such as co-op or swim practice or some type of meetup or whatever, and it's during those golden hours, you are impacting your potential amount of homeschool you can do, and especially the quality of that homeschooling. That's always something I think about. But this coming year, it is, I'm just going to have to deal with it, right? It's like, you got to do what you got to do. And for the most part.
Well, and we have to just have some different strategies.
Yeah.
And there's some subjects, and frankly, there's different subjects are okay or better at different times depending on what we're learning. And this is, our youngest is pretty bulletproof as far as she'll do reading or math most of the time, and she doesn't really have a preference. She's kind of getting them both. Our older one struggles with reading, but there's sometimes when she's struggling with math depending on what what we're doing.
That's very time dependent at that point.
It is. And so sometimes if we know we have to pick up a lesson in the afternoon, we're going to, structure that such that we're picking up whatever is the easier of the things right now. Oh, we're going through a review section and reading. Great. We're going to do that one in the afternoon because we can't do the math. So
that's a great point. Gauging the difficulty of the lesson that you're trying to do and maybe front loading the more difficult lesson if you have a tight window. One of the things I like to do is take the girls to a movie in the morning, at 10 o'clock showing. They have these summer movies in our town. and they're cheap, $2 a movie. So there are these older movies, like older kids movies. So they bring them back and they're pretty affordable, but I got to get the homeschooling done before we go. And, it takes about 10 minutes to get there. And, I got to get done at 9:30, right? So we can leave and go do that. And, really cramming in that homeschool. And you're right. I make those type of decisions of, okay, I can push off this reading activity because that's something that's easier for her today versus maybe this math lesson might be a little bit more challenging. So you may have to make those types of decisions through your preparation, whether that's the night before or the day before, or if you're doing your planning for the coming week. You may want to consider and look ahead. I like to flip through. You probably saw it. I was up on over the fireplace today, like flipping through the lessons and trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to teach for tomorrow?
Right, because they want to go swimming with a friend.
They want to go swimming, and I'm like, okay, we're going to go at 11. I need to make sure that, it takes us a half hour to get there. Okay, we got to be done at 10:30, walk back, get prepped, pottied, shoes, socks, all that stuff. Okay, we need to be done by 9:45, which means that tells me in my head, I got to be downstairs going, educating at 8:15 in the morning so I can get everything done and be ready for this activity that we're going to do. And so these are the type of considerations that I think we all have to, come to grips with respect to what we think and know our children are going to be able to do.
Absolutely. And, just recognizing for us, the no or very low homeschool days are a necessity because of a busy schedule. But there are plenty of times when we just take a break because we just had 2 kids come back from camp and they needed a break. They were not ready to come back and just hit the ground running. These have been very low homeschool days for them because that's just what they needed.
Be honest, Ariel, they're broken.
Well, it takes a little bit to get back to everything. But I think it's important that we recognize that these are natural. And they always happen. It's one of these funny things, like if you make your budget every month to all the bills and all the things that you have in your grocery budget, and everything, like here's our budget. But every month there's an extra $300 thing that happens. One month it's car repair, and the next month it's tickets for something. And but if every month there's an extra $300, you should just put an extra $300 in your budget. And I feel like that, or whatever it is, right? And I feel like that's the way that this is.
If you're always missing something happening every week,
right? It's like if we planned and even with our schedule next year, kind of we're already thinking about what days we were going to homeschool. We're already kind of talking with you about that, but if we plan that every one of those days is always going to hit, we will always be disappointed because invariably, at least one day a week, things go sideways.
Yeah.
It just every week. One day that we had planned to do something, it doesn't work. Our kids didn't sleep well. Somebody's feeling sick. You
had some errands you had to run at the store.
Right. Oh, we had to take the car in, so you've got to take me to work that day, and so the kids don't get, whatever. One day a week. Always happens, something goes wrong. So I think we just need to recognize that it's natural. It's the natural flow of things, that we need breaks, and that breaks are going to be imposed upon us whether we want them or not. But they're a really good and healthy thing for our family. So
let's talk a little bit about that's a great segue into kind of understanding what these no and low homeschool days look like. I think a lot of times you may think, okay, we're just going to have an off day. Everyone's going to hang out on the couch. But you're right. That off day could be the day where you're running around doing a bunch of errands.
Sure could.
And you could have a wild and crazy schedule that day. That could be your no homeschool day, right? Like, for example, our Wednesdays are going to be, they all have 5 classes that day. We don't leave the school until 2:30. And you're like, I'm there from 9 to 2:30. I'm not going to do any homeschooling that day, but the kids have choir and they're singing and dancing and playing and having fun time. One of them has a reading class and stuff, but they're not going to get any direct instruction from me that day. That is essentially no homeschool day for me, as a thing. And we're going to talk a little bit about, no homeschool days for the adults, but also for the children. And so let's talk a little bit about what would be that definition of a no or low homeschool day?
Well, I think, obviously it's hard for me to say there's ever a no homeschool day. I kind of, I instinctively balk at that because learning happens all the time in everything. I mean, we've just finished watching the Olympics and our kids have been playing Olympics. Every time they're doing imaginative play, which would be a no homeschool time, right? They're planning how they would get to Paris and all the different events that people are in and who had a gold medal and who didn't. And they're counting and they're making these different, and what's the training regimen look like for Barbie if she wants to be on the floor exercise, right? So, I mean, they're going through all this stuff and it's all imaginative, but it's all reinforcing this learning that's taken place over the last couple of weeks, right? So anything that you're running around, you've got to drop me at work or you're doing errands or whatever it is, they're learning all the time. So, I kind of like, there's never really a no homeschool day because life is homeschool. So, but with that out of the way, those days are days, I would say they're days where you're not doing structured learning. Right? They're either learning experientially or for low homeschool days, there's lots of different ways that could look like. And maybe it means you do just a single core subject and you don't do any other stuff. Maybe it means you just do your other fun stuff and you just do your art and your cooking and you read a few books to them, but they don't do core subjects. That could be a low homeschool day. I think every family would have a different definition of what that looks like. And every time you do it, it might be different.
Yeah. Playing a bunch of board games or things like that. You're right. Going back to they're learning through, they're playing the Olympics right now, but also like our little one is picking out the Americans and which lane they are so that she's seeing the numbers. She's doing a little bit of vexology. So she sees the flags and she's like, oh yeah, that's that flag. And that's
our
that
daughter
flag.
Our older daughter is reading the front of the uniforms. She's like, oh, Kenya's in the lead. She's reading so we're still watching the Olympics because we have it on record. And so we're like, she can, they're really seeing different things. They're recognizing
Canada is the leaf country.
Right. Yeah. Our younger daughter is like, they're from the leaf. Our older one's like, that's Canada, honey. I was like, okay. So it's where there's the leaf and the dragon because China has some really cool uniforms.
For the diving competitions.
Yeah, it's been kind of funny, but it's true. And part of the thing that's, we talked about kind of what this is, but talking about the benefits of it. Yeah. The first one for me is that this reduces burnout for us and for them. Homeschooling, it's very seasonal. And I feel like not everyone's season is the same, although there is a time there in like February where we all hit the same kind of burnout. Just if you haven't been homeschooling yet, just wait, it'll come for you. It's that, we're really excited to get back after Christmas and then, it's dreary outside and we all kind of, but besides kind of your seasonal weather things.
You keep saying it. I'm going to have to sing my seasons of homeschooling again.
Oh gosh. So there is these ups and downs that happen and it's really natural and it happens in everything. If work, school, whatever, it happens in homeschool. And this I think helps to smooth those valleys for us because, we need breaks and our kids need breaks. And if we just keep hard charging, we all are going to just burn out and no one's going to want to do this anymore.
Yeah. And at some point you're kind of just they'll kind of go with the flow like we all would if we were in a really hard pushing situation where we're just doing the same thing over and over. Eventually you start to eyes glaze over and you're just going with the flow. And the last thing we want to do is have a go with the flow situation with education. We want engagement. We want to enjoy it. We want them to take something away from it, and we don't want to push so hard. So I think a lot of what we're talking about today and kind of what we're going to go into here a little bit more, but is really just giving you the ability to make those decisions and allowing you that space to say you don't have to hard charge all the time. And in some cases, you probably shouldn't because the long-term success of your homeschool is dependent on you guys enjoying it and having a good relationship and making sure that it's a successful experience for everyone.
Talking about wanting it to be, engaging and all that stuff. There's plenty of days. I know for you, you feel this way, but the few times when I've had to take over, there's some times when I'm like, I'm not feeling the engagement.
Yeah, right.
We would just be going with the flow. Well, let's do math, and I don't think that that's helpful either because our kids totally feed off of that vibe when they're like, oh, he or she's not really into this. True. Our kids are just like, they walk into a new week or whatever, Sunday nights as we sit here on a Sunday night and record this. And Sunday night's always our preparation night, right? Where we're getting ready. What books do I have to reserve at the library? What lessons are you going to prepare? What art supplies do we have to pull out? All that stuff. Our kids just wake up in the morning and they're like, hey, what's going on? Yes. What's on the agenda today?
How easily they recharge.
Right. They're just like, yeah, what do you got for me? And it's a lot of work for us. So I think, you can feel that pressure. And there are times when we had a seriously busy weekend and we did all this stuff, and then Monday morning rolls around and we are not ready.
Yeah.
So
That's always the thing I always say to you, kind of jokingly, not so jokingly, like, oh, I just want to have family time on the weekend. I'm like, that's just more of what I had during the week. It's like,
but I'm craving my family. I've been working all week.
It's like, no, I want to run away for a little bit. No, like, and you're right. It can, if you have a busy long weekend, all of a sudden you wake up on Monday and you're like, I haven't had a break. Like it's just been nonstop. So you're right. You want to be able to filter. You want to be able to have those opportunities to have some downtime. And
absolutely. And having that downtime allows for us to rest. It allows for us and our kids to regain our creative energies. It gives our kids some time to, have their imaginative play. They've, like we've been talking about them playing Olympics. They've been having a great time together. And this is like, if we had to stop all that, say, okay, guys, it's time to come down. We got some homeschool to do. They'd be like, ugh. And I never want them to feel like homeschool is this burden. I mean, it's a balance, right? You want your kids to enjoy learning, to seek that, be curious learners and enthusiastic. But we also know that, grit is an important thing too. And sometimes they just got to do stuff they don't want to do. And they just got to be able to do that because we as adults have to do that every day. So there's this mix where I don't want it to always be like, you have to always have fun or we're not doing it, because sometimes you just got to sit down and do your math. But as much as we can, I like for us to acknowledge when they're having that recharge time and not interrupt it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Kind of going into, the tips for managing high and low productivity days, I think the first thing we got to think about when we're trying to, kind of insert these type of moments in our life, especially if you're planning a week ahead. I think planning months and months ahead is maybe not the best practice for homeschooling. I think
it's never worked for us.
I think it hasn't worked for us.
For some people.
Yeah. But like, you know the reality of doing a lot of work. You don't know what's going to happen that far in ahead. I mean, you can lay out your schedule like, okay, this is the next country we need to do, or these are the lessons that I know we need to accomplish in this order. But saying, okay, on that day, we're going to do this thing, that too far, more than a week
unless
or two.
You've got museum tickets.
Yeah. Unless you have something planned, I think knowing what you're going to do for the week is probably a good idea. And so when you're coming into it, you want to plan a little bit ahead and say, last week was a tough week. We have a pretty open schedule here in the beginning of the week. If we can just get through our lessons early, maybe on that Thursday we can have a day off, or maybe on that Thursday we can go see a movie, or maybe on Thursday we can go to the Jumpy House or go to the park or do some other type of activity, whatever it might be, to help bring the levity back into the homeschool, make it fun, and give them a day off. And actually, I'm a real big fan of communicating the day off. Like, it's not just something we spring on to say, hey, if we can get through today, tomorrow we're going to have a day off and we'll let you guys choose what to do. A lot of times I can get the engines going. It can be kind of exciting. So thinking about planning those days off, especially if you're thinking about, okay, what's coming up over this week, or, what activities do we have this week? What things are going to be impacting, our kids, from day to day. Oh, there's basketball on Tuesday. I don't think I want to do a bunch of stuff on Wednesday. We want to be really kind of low key because she's going to be tired from that, or I don't want it to be a very, super active during the day. She has basketball practice or basketball game at 7:30 at night. It's going to be a super late night for her. That Wednesday, she's going to be absolutely gassed in the morning. So maybe that's the day we do the low homeschooling day. So like thinking about the schedule and expectations, I think is a great way to plan ahead on, when you can implement these things.
Yeah, I think planning breaks is really important. I think just as important is to make sure there's enough flexibility in your schedule to account for the unplanned breaks, and building in those buffer days. So you can use your planning method of choice. There's lots of ways to go. We've planned with Trello. We've got a couple of YouTube videos on that if that's something that you like. And I kind of liked that because I could say, like, this is what I want to do for the whole week, but what day I'm going to do everything was really flexible. I could move it around. Some people will do like reverse planning. So they'll have a general idea, but they won't write it in their planner till after they did it.
Yeah.
So
Especially
that
if
they
you're
don't have that.
Especially if reporting is a thing that you have to do in your area.
Right.
Reverse planning is kind of that method that people go to backfill kind of what they did for the week as a way to then report forward to whatever authorities or people they need.
And so maybe this is like an under promise over deliver situation where, set reasonable expectations for yourself, because if every week something comes in from left field and derails one of your homeschool days, just plan that that's going to happen, and don't set, I hate when I hear new homeschoolers come in, especially, and they're like, they have this schedule and it's every 15 minutes, this is what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And they're anticipating that they're going to homeschool every day of the week, and they have super, super high expectations for themselves. And I think if your family can run that way, like, that's awesome. But a lot of times what happens is they end up feeling like they're running to keep up with that schedule, because stuff does come up, and then they feel like, oh gosh, I'm failing if I didn't get all the things done that was on my plan today.
Yeah, kind of hamster wheel effect.
Yeah, and you just don't want to set yourself up to feel like you're failing, or for your kids to feel like they're not getting all the work done that you'd planned for them. It's a vicious cycle.
I think another way to, outside of the planning, is in your kind of utility belt to have these kind of low effort educational activities or experiences. The museum's a good one. Watching a documentary, watching some videos on YouTube about a certain subject, diving into the art, if you guys are an artistic family. Having these kind of low effort, especially from you as an educator standpoint, while knowing that these kind of low effort things might be very fun for your students, it's a great way to let them have a great time while you can kind of kick it and have a lighter thing, right?
But yeah, like, this is what we use educational apps for.
Oh yeah.
So we have some educational apps on tablets for the kids, and they don't really get to use them very often, but they are the perfect thing to bring out, when you need a break. And we are talking about days here, but this can also just be a time. There's times a block of time, right? There's times when you didn't get your workout in, and you're feeling stressed about it because you don't know when you're going to do it. At some point, you may take a break from homeschool and say, kids, you can play these apps. I'm going to go do my workout. And that you recharge yourself. They're having a great time. So those are great educational podcasts or audiobooks. We haven't talked about this way too, but there can be days when you as a parent are ill, right? If you have we know someone who's chronically ill, and there's just some days they can't do what they'd planned to do. So but they have things like this in their tool belt that they can bring out, and they know their kid's gonna have a great time. We use Play-Doh this way. This is and we have all kinds of building toys for our kids. We have educational games.
Lots of
board games, and now our kids can play games together. So that's cool too, because we can just say, hey, let's do this game, and you guys can play it together while I clean up or take 30-minute break or whatever it is. But you're right. I think having your kind of low homeschool day educational tool belt, and this is a good use for a crate, everybody. If you want a crate or a shelf or something where you can have lots of things waiting in the wings that are easy to pull, that make you feel like, hey, the kids are still getting some educational benefit, but I'm not having to prepare a big activity.
Well, especially we've talked a little bit about it in the past, and we've mentioned this before, but there are a lot of subscription services for science and engineering style activities.
Well, there's art ones too.
We always know that engineering and science is a hard thing for us to incorporate, especially with early learners. Buying something like a Kiwi crate or something of that nature. I know that the kid from NASA, the guy from what's his name?
I don't know, Mark Robson. What is called?
He has a crate as well. I'll put a link down in the show notes. But having something like that in kind of the wings, where you can then give that to your kids, and then they go off and build this thing and then play with it for an hour or so, is another way for you to okay, one day of a week or one day a month or 2 days a month, they're going to do their engineering boxes or their science boxes. And that might be the time, those couple hours that you get to kind of have to yourself, something fun for them to do while you're also hitting that educational check box that we know is so important.
Absolutely.
Another thing that I like is talking about, that's kind of a tool belt structured thing. Another way to do it is thinking about, okay, what unstructured activities do I have in my tool belt? Is there something my children really like to do that is, unstructured in the sense of, all right, we're going to go to the park. We're going to have them do, Olympic races at the park, right? So they can burn off some energy.
And they can make up their own. Our kids made up their own Olympic events when we went, pack a small picnic. We have a fort kit that we'll put a link in the show notes. We love this kit. It's just got some like parachute blanket type things. And all you have to do is take 5 minutes and set up the fort, and they are good for hours.
But doing something a little bit unconventional, for example, taking that fort kit stuff and bringing it to the park. Because, all right, we have homeschool kids. We tend to have the parks to ourselves, especially around us.
Yeah, we do.
Bringing that to the park and going, this is a very special thing. I'm going to let you guys build a fort underneath this thing. And they're going to be like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? We get to build, or if you have sort of like a tent that you can bring along, kind of a pop-up tent, and they can play in that while at the park. Having those kind of like unique, out of the box, it seems so simple, but to them, like for example, we were talking the other day, we noticed our daughter was playing in the pool and she was having fun, but she just seemed to kind of lack, some excitement. And I said, you can go get some of your Barbies and bring them into the pool. And she's like, really? She was like so excited.
We made this like flotilla of little Barbie rafts.
It turns out that her Barbie boat doesn't float. So it's kind of a
good job, Mattel.
Good job, Mattel. And so you went out and got like this little inflatable.
It was actually like a drink float for like a drink cooler thing.
We were looking for it for like Barbies, but I'm like, no. It's like a beer, a cider thing inside of a pool. And you're like, oh, that's right. You found it, and it could hold like a bunch of ice and a bunch of drinks, but we're going to give it to them so they can put all their Barbies in.
Oh yeah, we already blew it up. It's the shape of a pineapple. They're super excited.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show.
Barbie float.
I'll put it in the show notes below. But just having that kind of like, I didn't know I could bring my Barbies into the pool. That makes things 100 times more exciting.
And they're out there having a ball. I think this unstructured time.
A lot of imaginative play.
This could be time in nature. It could also be creative time. We have an art drawer. We have, just like crayons and colored pencils and construction paper and scissors and glue sticks and, opening that up and saying, here you go.
Oh, the one that we just found. The kinetic sand. So we're not big like unstructured Play-Doh as much.
Well, the Play-Doh tends to get everywhere.
And one thing we haven't wanted to do is kinetic sand because I'm afraid that's going to get everywhere.
Yep.
But we just found that they have these like kinetic sand kits that come in a tub.
Yeah.
And the tub is part of the so like
it
all is
build
contained.
The castle in the tub and then put the lid back on. Yeah, we'll put a link to that in show notes
because
it was really cool.
We got that one. That's an early Christmas gift. We got that one.
Yeah, because we were like, oh, cool, this will be great. You know, so yeah, I think there's definitely our kids have these sets of like beads. They're plastic beads that they click together and they can make necklaces and bracelets and all kinds of different structures with these beads. They love that, and so we keep some of that stuff. Kind of out of reach, and then we can just pull it down when we need an activity to give them, and it feels fresh and new to them because they didn't have access to it all the time. Yep. It's like, hey, here you go. We pulled down a slime kit the other day. We let them do it. It was a hot day, so we let them do it out back. I'd been holding on to this slime kit for like a year, and
it's been a hit.
They absolutely loved it. They were so excited. They had the best time with this. So, yeah, just leaning into that unstructured playtime and knowing that that is also really valuable. It's good for their mental health, and it's great for them to use their imaginations and be creative.
And speaking of mental health, talking a little bit more about relaxing, having that opportunity to be a little bored, be a little quiet. We talk about quiet time and the importance of quiet time. Our daughter has always needed quiet time. I think our youngest doesn't really need quiet time, but she kind of needs to learn.
She just doesn't know how to do it yet.
She doesn't know how to do it.
Everyone needs a little quiet time.
We all need.
I firmly believe.
I think it's more of we need quiet time from her because she is so loud.
I think everybody needs their own time, right?
But she needs to learn to cultivate her own quiet time.
Yeah, that's really important. And it's funny, we had the kids were kind of bouncing off the walls one day when we were in Florida, and we turned on Cosmic Kids Yoga. Yep. It was so helpful. Those kids settled right down. Yep. And I know our older daughter especially, she can get really mentally overwhelmed. Yeah, big time. And she needs those times. So when you're taking a break because you all feel like you're like on the verge of burnout, you need to, not because life got in the way of homeschool, but because you actually feel like, hey, we all need a minute. learning some mindfulness exercises. There's a great book that's used in Torchlight Pre-K called Breathe Like a Bear, but I don't think it's necessarily just a preschool book. I mean, you can use it. I think it's valuable. So, get yourself a book or find there's good podcasts and things for this. And I find that, at least my older daughter, and she's only 8, and we can do these meditative type exercises together, where you close your eyes, you breathe, you calm, like all those things. It's great for your mental recharge.
Yep.
So find what works for you and your family. Our daughter loves to listen to audiobooks too, so I could always just give her headphones and let her listen to a book quietly, and that helps her recharge.
So hopefully those are some ideas on how to handle and plan and coordinate ideas for low or no homeschooling days. One of the, kind of the reverse of that is, because you have a no or low homeschooling day, you need to be able to transition back into a regular homeschool day. And how do you, rebound? How do you get back to the groove? How do you get back into what you need to be doing?
Right.
Now that you've taken this time off.
You kind of review where you're at and what were your goals for the week and how important was all that, right? There's times when, we really got to get some things done because we're going to be you're going on a trip, right? A couple weeks, our older daughter's going to go on a couple-day cruise with my parents. So we have some goals of things we need to achieve before she leaves.
Well, and she's just come off of 3 full week camps in the last 5 weeks.
Yeah, it's been a crazy summer.
It's been a crazy summer.
So, yeah, boy, between Girl Scouts and everything else, lots of camps and day camps and things. But yeah, so like we have some things, we have some hard stops. So, there's things like that to consider. Like, okay, hey, we have to get this done because we have to make a reporting or whatever it is. But if you don't, kind of like review, reassess, where are we at? Hey, my goal was that we were going to get this far in math this before Christmas time or the end of the year. Hey, we're this far along. I think we're okay. Just trying to figure out like how much do you need to do, because it's always easier if we ease ourselves back in, but you may not have the time to do that. You may need to just kind of like get your energy up and jump right in. Always really helpful if that's what you plan to do for everyone to get a great night's sleep. So yeah, our kids were really tired. We put them all to bed early tonight because we turned the Yodos to turn off early on both of them because we wanted them to get a lot of sleep, because tomorrow you need to get that homeschooling done in the morning so that you can get off and go swimming with your friends. So like that's, if you're going to hit the ground running the next day, make sure that you've prepped for it. The kids are prepped for it. And we like to broadcast with our kids, hey, today was a great day. This was really fun. We had a nice time off. Tomorrow, we're going to be getting back into it. We need to accomplish these things, and I need your partnership with that. And kind of,
I like the transparency. Yeah, the transparency, I think, is the communication, communicating expectations, acknowledging the uniqueness of the day, acknowledging the benefits of the day, like also like and rewarding it. Be like, I had a great day with you. Today was a lot of fun, and really building that connection back before then embarking back into what would be your normal schedule. Sure. I think is a big win. The communication is always a big thing for me, because if you can't communicate, it creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates frustration and stress and maybe potentially negative emotional responses on that. And I love the communication. It's been a big thing. It's sometimes hard to think about, like, hey, tomorrow I need to do these things, but like communicating what the schedule of the day is. Like I was telling both kids today, we need to do homeschool in the morning so that we can go do this fun thing. And I just need your support with it. And okay, no problem, Daddy. Yep. And so
when you get up in the morning, we want you to go ahead and get dressed,
get ready,
have your breakfast, go ahead and brush your teeth, come downstairs and be ready for homeschool. And I think they both understood that. We'll see how it goes tomorrow morning.
It's good. It's a good plan, Ariel. It's a good plan.
Yeah, we try. So just think about how you're going to bounce back. And if part of your issue with this is motivation, then really celebrate the small achievements, kind of boost your motivation back. Maybe choose something that you think is going to be fun for your kids to do. Like maybe it's a fun art project or an outing that you can do. Maybe it's going to lunch, something like that can help. Hey, let's get through our homeschool and then let's go out and do that picnic, or we'll go get ice cream in the afternoon. Or so try to if motivation is the issue, we have a couple of different podcasts about kind of getting back into the groove after a long breaks and things. So we have tons of ideas in there. This is just like a small set. But if that's your issue, we've got lots of things that are about getting back into the groove and getting motivation back. But I think it's really important to acknowledge these days off and cherish them. Because you don't always get days off, and sometimes they don't feel like a day off. Like the days when you're running around like crazy.
Yeah.
That I mean, we didn't do homeschool, but gosh, we were super busy. It wasn't like we were lounging, like you said. So overall, to sum it all up, we just want everyone to know that not homeschooling all 5 days of the week, or things like that's totally okay. Like, give yourself permission to take the breaks that you need, or the breaks that are imposed upon you, and don't be upset about them, because we don't go. I don't know a lot of families that do that homeschool every single day, even all 5 days of the week. It just doesn't usually turn out that way. And if your homeschool works that way, that is awesome, and I commend you. But if not, just know that it's totally okay to work with whatever schedule you need for you and your kids and the rest of your life. It's all okay. Like, it is all good. So don't be hard on yourselves. That's the big message we want to impart. Don't be hard on yourselves. Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook, and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time.
Happy homeschooling!